New data shows that Ontario voters are stupid, while BC voters are smarter. Now, if you disagree with me, I say first wait, watch the video, but then you can write down your comment and hit delete because I don't give a f***. Now, the first poll I want to show you is from Innovative Research. This was taken on May 5th. You can see here that the Ontario Liberal Party is up 19 points, sitting at 39% atop the poll, with the Ontario PCs in second place at 34%, down 7 points, and the Ontario NDP down 16 points, sitting at 18%, and the Green Party up to sitting at 7. Now, in case you don't know the political landscape here, the PCs are the governing party with the NDP as the official opposition. The Liberal Party right now in Ontario is almost nothing. Their presence is not really felt. So the only reason that the Liberals in Ontario right now would be doing this well is because people see the federal Liberal Party, Trudeau's party, and think, whoa, Trudeau's doing well. I guess that means the Ontario Liberals are doing great. It's just like, okay, I'm going to get more into other details. But clearly, I think that is the majority of this reaction here. And even just based on that, because the Ontario Liberal Party is benefiting from the federal Liberal Party, the federal Liberal Party is in fact benefiting from the federal NDP. So there's a lot of reporting on this. I already did multiple videos on this, but there's a great piece and passage from Christo Avalis titled NDP Deserves Credit for Dramatically Improving COVID-19 Benefits. Basically, in case you don't know the story here, quick overview. The NDP were the ones that came up with the idea of $2,000 a month, 75% wage subsidy, and improving EI in other areas. Basically, ideas that the NDP brought forth, and the Liberal Party took them to their benefit. They saw a good idea, and they took it, but they took the idea, implemented it, and the Liberal Party is benefiting from that, while the NDP are dropping. Not even just in Ontario, but also federally. But there's also the main issue now when it comes to Ontario as it pertains to COVID-19. Long-term care homes. So this reporting from CTV News. According to the National Institute of Aging at Ryerson University in Toronto, more than 80% of COVID-19 deaths in Ontario can be linked to long-term care homes. Quebec has a similar figure, and 34 of the 41 deaths in Nova Scotia are connected to one long-term care home in Halifax. Death tolls in long-term care homes in all three provinces are rising, even as the curve seems to be flattening outside the homes. So if you've paid attention to what's happening in Canada at all, you would know that the main impact of COVID-19 here is on long-term care homes. Now, part of that is obvious. The elderly are going to be more impacted by the coronavirus. But another major part of that is how long-term care is treated in Canada. So Sinha, who is Dr. Samar Sinha, Director of Geriatrics at Mount Sinai Hospital in Toronto, his explanation for how COVID-19 could be so destructive in long-term care homes while the rest of the country has avoided such a severe hit echoes that of many others who have closely studied the issue. He said Canada's senior care sector has long struggled with underfunding and neglect, leading to consequences that include workers being employed at multiple homes and frequently moving between them, making it easier to spread a virus from one facility to another. Additionally, he said, those employed by long-term care homes are often paid significantly less than they would be to perform the same functions at hospitals and may not receive benefits or paid sick days, meaning they may be less likely to stay away from work even when they feel sick. So, the real issue here is how long-term care is treated in Canada. And of course, a big chunk of that, a big reason why the employees are treated the way they're treated and how these facilities are treated is because they are largely privatized. And this is under both conservative governments and liberal governments in Ontario. So this is from Nora Loretto at Passage. She writes, the long-term care network exists mostly outside of Canada's public health system. Despite the fact that service within many of these facilities resembles hospital care, the system is dominated by private for-profit providers. Like dental or pharmacare, it's a glaring gap in Canada's public healthcare system. Unsurprisingly, staff are underpaid and often must work at various locations to cobble together a paycheck. The public health facilities that exist are funded through stretched budgets. The rest are offered through cooperatives and not-for-profit private facilities and for-profit corporations. In Ontario, Mike Harris's progressive conservative government favored building for-profit long-term care facility beds over public beds. Many of the companies who were given contracts were also big donors to the party. The Liberals, who were in power in the province from 2003 until 2018, did little to address the funding gaps and strain on the system. So while a lot of the blame here could definitely be put on the progressive conservatives, you also have to blame the Liberals for being in power for so long and not making any real change to any of it. And to give you just one stat here that puts it into perspective, John Lancaster here at CBC tweeted out, "I covered Ontario's inquiry into long-term care homes in 2018, and one of the most shocking things I recall from it was how many facilities spend less per capita feeding residents than prisons do feeding inmates." So, when it comes to especially privately run facilities, they will cut corners in any way they can to save a buck. So if that means feeding the elderly residents of these long-term care homes, if it means feeding them food that lacks nutritional value, clearly lacks any real investment into what they're being fed, then they'll do it to save a buck. Now, I want to compare what's happening in Ontario to what's happening in BC under an NDP government. So going on here, on the other side of the country though, long-term care homes seem to have been somewhat spared. In BC, there had been 74 deaths linked to such facilities as of Tuesday. Still a high proportion of the total deaths, but nowhere near as many per capita as in the eastern provinces. BC was the site of the first declared COVID-19 outbreak at a long-term care home in Canada on March 5th, and the first death linked to a long-term care home on March 8th. After that, Sinha said, the province moved fast to protect those living and working in long-term care homes long before COVID-19 took hold elsewhere in the country. So, under an NDP government in BC, they took this COVID-19 seriously from the start, and they took the steps to protect people in long-term care homes. You see here, about 74 deaths in BC in long-term care. It's in Ontario nearing 1,000 deaths in long-term care. Now, this isn't even just about long-term care. Looking at overall cases of COVID-19 in BC versus the rest of Canada. Take a look at this. Cumulative diagnosed COVID-19 case rates by select countries versus BC and Canada. So on the y-axis, you have confirmed cases per 1 million population. On the x-axis, you have days since rate reached 2 cases per 1 million population. You can see here, BC is doing extraordinarily well compared to the rest of Canada. I mean, it's not even close. And look at death rate comparison. It's the exact same thing. The rest of Canada, excluding BC, continues to see increases here in the death rate. BC is flattening off. And the polling in BC also reflects this response. So the NDP right now, again, the governing party in British Columbia, is +2 at 42%. The BC Liberals down 4 at 36%. The Conservatives +11%. Largely taking away from the BC Liberals and the Greens, who are down 7 at 10%. So this is why it's obvious. Whatever you want to blame the media, blame maybe the party, the Ontario NDP not being vocal enough, whatever the hell it is. Regardless, voters in British Columbia are a little more aware of what is actually going on there compared to Ontario voters. NDP, or I should say BC voters, are able to see that the Liberal Party of Canada, the Trudeau Liberal Party, does not exactly reflect the BC Liberals. And Ontario voters apparently can't figure out that difference. Can't figure out that the Ontario Liberals are different than Trudeau's Liberals. Unless there is some other reason that the Liberal Party in Ontario is so popular. I mean, please lay it out for me. What have they done? The NDP is the official opposition in Ontario, the ones actually holding Doug Ford and the PCs to account. Yet the Liberals up 19 points. It's just crazy. And again, even apart from that, when it comes to the Liberals federally, they've been largely impacted by the federal NDP. So I rest my case. If you want to, write your comment about how you disagree, how your feelings are hurt, that I told you Ontario voters are stupid, and I'm showing you the facts right here. You can do it, but I live in Ontario, We're pretty dumb. Clearly, people in BC are at least a little more aware of what is really going on.